the trade was put on hold. Listen right here as Pablo Torre, he did not even put up a podcast episode. He just instantly went live on his phone and gave a nice clue for those of us that was wondering why.
I just think I need to spell this out. The reason the Toronto Raptors are not finalizing this trade with the Los Angeles Clippers for Kawhi Leonard is because they are concerned that Kawhi Leonard did something that is worthy of punishment by the NBA. The NBA, by the way, which has told the Toronto Raptors, buyer beware, apparently. It is now official, buyer beware. Any penalties that Kawhi Leonard incurs as a part of this investigation, that is a risk that the Raptors and the Raptors alone assume. The Clippers don't assume that penalty for Kawhi Leonard. The buyer does. The Raptors do. And the Raptors are saying, well, then we cannot do it, which says so much about the credibility of the alleged cap circumvention scheme involving Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers in Aspiration that we've been reporting on for 11 months. The same allegations, by the way, that the Raptors have been circling since 2019 when they became the most aggrieved party in this whole story. And now they are saying we can't trade for this guy under these conditions because we think it is quite possible that there is actually something that he did worth punishing. That's what the meaning of this frozen trade really is. And then there's the second part, which is that the Los Angeles Clippers have leaked to Shams Charania a 5-paragraph statement. The Raptors had 3 sentences. Clippers had 5 paragraphs, and this is one of them. At the heart of this investigation are Joe Sanberg and Aspiration. We did not funnel money to Kawhi Leonard through Aspiration. Like many sophisticated investors, financial institutions, and business partners, we were victims of a fraud initiated by Sanberg, who has been convicted and sentenced to 14 years in prison.
Now, before I let Pablo continue, notice right there how the Clippers organization blamed Sanberg. And we also hear about his 14-year prison sentence. That ruling right there is after he cooperated with not only the NBA, but also the feds. In my opinion, I believe because he cooperated and this is a financial crime, he did not expect to do 14 years. And this right here is where things even get scarier. Guess who got on the stand after a bunch of witnesses and just people who were involved where their lives were impacted because of the outcome of this fraud? We also got to include Steve Ballmer. He gave statements against his boy. And later on in this segment, we're going to see how Steve Ballmer not only has been funding nonprofits that Joe Sanberg has been in charge of way before he owned the Clippers, he did it even after the Aspiration fraud in 2024. Once again, I'm going to add additional timelines. In the 2023-24 season, the Clippers terminated their agreement with Aspiration. And then a few months later, by July 18th of 2024, Bloomberg began to drop bombshells accusing Aspiration of just being a complete fraud. Crazy shit right there, but it gets even scarier because by the end of that very year of 2024, by the time it hit December, Steve Ballmer gave additional money to Joe Sanberg in a complete separate nonprofit. Oh, we're going to get into it later with that, but let's continue hearing from Pablo right here.
But the entire thing we've been saying over 11 months almost is that you can be scammed by Joe Sanberg and also have worked with him to try to deceive the NBA. You can be deceived by the guy you trusted to help you deceive the NBA's salary cap circumvention system. In fact, it's what the federal whistleblower complaint that we obtained that was filed under penalty of perjury in 2023, filed by 2 Aspiration whistleblowers who provided the whole roadmap for the prosecution of Joe Sanberg to the federal government, has indicated. And so did the DOJ prosecutor who launched that federal investigation. 2 things can be true. You got scammed by Joe, and you tried to use him to get one over on the NBA. So the question now, given all these things I've said, is what changed after June 30th when this trade was publicly announced? What changed between June 30th and July 9th?
What changed between those dates is exactly what the media is not talking about. The outcome of the Karr versus Sanberg case that started back in July of 2025. Steve Ballmer's name got added in in November of 2025 to that lawsuit, and ever since he's been trying to get it thrown out because he understands it exposes him to possibly get subpoenaed by the feds. That's going to open up everything behind the scenes with the Clippers, emails, financial transactions, as well as all the other entities that Steve Ballmer has. They're trying to find any communication link between him and Sanberg because that is the accusations in that lawsuit. So again, June 30th, that case was ruled that it can go forward involving Ballmer. Then on July 6th, Kawhi fired not only his uncle, also his agent. A few days later, the trade was made between the Raptors and Clippers for Kawhi, and then the NBA by July 9th had put it on hold. Matter of fact, Pablo Torre went live the next day on July 10th, giving the hints out what changes happened in the last 10 days. And this is now where we're going to hear the exact details of this case. And for those of you that are watching the visual version, we got the fucking paperwork. Once again, we're taking you off your daily algorithms and getting into some more nuanced shit because this case right here is what the NBA media is refusing to bring up because they understand it exposes Ballmer to the feds, and Adam Silver and Wachtell Lipton, that law firm, cannot protect him. Not only they're not going to risk their reputation, they don't even have jurisdiction to protect him from just all his back-end dealings, emails, text messages, bank transfers from being put out there. So as we pull up the paperwork for the Karr versus Sanberg case where Steve Ballmer's name has been attached to that lawsuit, we could see Aspiration had rebranded themselves and now they go by the name of Katona. But just listen to the accusations. Remember, the judge had approved for this case to go forward, but all this happened after Steve Ballmer had actually gave statements against his boy Sanberg. We gotta wonder, a guy like that doing financial crimes who cooperated, he didn't expect to get 14 years. So there might be some animosity right there, especially he's a middle-aged man. I believe he's in his late 50s. To get 14 years? Shit, who knows? The get back could be real and he might want to take Steve Ballmer down. Let's listen to some of the accusations on the paperwork.
By 2021, Katona was running out of money and needed a deep-pocket benefactor, and along came Steve Ballmer. Sanberg made a crooked deal with Ballmer, the billionaire owner of the NBA's Los Angeles Clippers, to provide financial support and promote Katona to investors such as plaintiffs. The arrangement was that Ballmer would be an investor in Katona, and in return, Ballmer would use Katona to secretly funnel millions of dollars to star NBA player Kawhi Leonard. These funds would be channeled through Katona to Leonard so that Ballmer could induce Leonard to re-sign with the Clippers by covertly paying him more than allowed by the NBA's salary cap rules. Sanberg and Ballmer worked together to make Katona appear to be a successful company backed by Ballmer, who is one of the wealthiest people in the world, worth over $150 billion. With Ballmer's knowledge, support, and assistance, Sanberg and Ballmer promoted Katona to lend legitimacy to Katona's operations, and Ballmer publicly endorsed Katona. This enticed investors like plaintiffs to entrust in and keep their capital in Katona and helped hide the rampant fraud occurring at the company.
Now, before we continue hearing more, I'm going to include a few links in the description below as we went over the payment schedules of how Aspiration never had enough money to even give Kawhi and his uncle what they agreed to. The wire transfers, not only from the Clippers, but as well as from Ballmer's other entities funding Aspiration, as it was going through multiple probes from the feds, the IRS. Shit gets crazy. But we got the timelines, the paperwork, the scheduling. It's fucking wild. But let's continue to hear some more of the accusations in the paperwork.
It also served Ballmer's interest in getting extra money to Leonard so he could circumvent the salary cap, beat out the competition, and re-sign his team's superstar player. Ballmer was complicit in and aided and abetted Sanberg's fraud for his own self-serving purpose. Ballmer publicly endorsed Katona and infused over $50 million into the company. Absent Ballmer's support, Katona could not have sustained the fraud set forth herein. Sanberg's scheme also included borrowing millions of dollars using phony financial statements and artificially inflating the value of Katona. Sanberg generated phony revenue for Katona, funneling his funds through others who would purport to be genuine customers of Katona and purchase sustainability products, typically carbon credits. These were sham customers. Sanberg himself was the true source of these purchases.
So this pending case with all these accusations since July of 2025 and Steve Ballmer's name being added in November of 2025 is the reason why Adam Silver has been jammed up of not coming to a conclusion. Within that lawsuit, the investors had made a criminal complaint originally just against Sanberg. Matter of fact, I'm gonna read it right here. On June 30th, the ruling determined that the fraud claims belong to the individual investors rather than the bankruptcy estate, allowing a high-profile California lawsuit to proceed. The company Aspirations Holdings filed for bankruptcy Chapter 11 in March of 2025 after federal authorities filed a criminal complaint against its founder. And in that ruling, the bankruptcy trustee had attempted to halt the investors and try to have the state take over. But the judge had rejected the trustee's motion, ruling that the automatic stay in a state jurisdiction did not apply to these individual claims. This is what really got Adam Silver and the NBA caught up right here, just taking so long to come to a ruling with this Steve Ballmer cap circumvention. They already know if the feds get involved, there's going to be a lot more that's going to get exposed and their reputations are on the line. But again, Steve Ballmer, he has been good for NBA business. That's their fucking real dilemma. Make no mistake about it, Silver is working overtime to not only get this situation handled, but he wants Ballmer involved in the league going forward. It's been good for business, and this is why we seen him kind of cozy up to Trump. And that's not by mistake, as right here we're going to tie this all in. There's a reason why Silver has been cozying up to Trump, because he's really the only person that can get this shit thrown out. As we all know, the NBA media, as well as the media at large, overall they tend to lean to the left, and they've been very shocked of Adam Silver's change of tune when it comes to Trump. Now check out Adam Silver right here before Game 2 of the NBA Finals, as he was asked by a media member, almost kind of bringing up Trump's presence as an inconvenience, and Silver does a complete 180, especially with the temperament he had for Trump back in 2016, and now he kind of welcomes him in to the NBA and just lets it be known that his presence isn't an inconvenience. Once again, check out the way the media member asked the question, because he sort of implies that Trump's presence is a complete inconvenience and it's not wanted. And Silver goes out of his way to throw that Uno card.
And then also, when you have a place that's as big as New York City, hasn't had a finals in so long, how painstaking has it been for the NBA to prepare for the crowds, the people partying outside watching the game, the crazy fans, maybe unique people deciding to attend the game? Like, how much preparation have you guys done on that regard, and is it still a work in progress?
Yeah, I just say I don't view that part of the job as painstaking. I think it's a really enjoyable part of the job. I happen to live, as I said, in New York City, and so I'm seeing it every day. And yes, viewing parties, things the Knicks are putting together, things that the league is helping with, but the great news, games are on broadcast television. Obviously, there's only so many tickets to these games. It's frustrating that more people can't get in the buildings and more people can't get the buildings at lower prices, but markets are markets.
Again, Adam Silver working overtime, boy, because Donald Trump is the only one that can save Steve Ballmer from getting subpoenaed by the feds in that Karr versus Sanberg case. Check out Silver once again during Game 3 talking about Trump. The tone is completely different, especially when you have a president, for the most part, for a lot of corporations in America in the last few years, it's been a I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of atmosphere.
Let me ask you too, not only as if the Knicks and the Spurs were not enough, you have the president who's going to be in attendance tonight. What were the machinations and the behind the scenes there in terms of, should he come to the game? Do they talk to you about, does the president wants to come to the game? How does all of that work?
I found out because Jim Dolan invited him to the game, and he said yes, and he's welcome to be here. I think that what makes sports so special, especially when there's so much that divides people, is it's something that we have in common, and we should look for those things that we have in common and build off that. And I'll also say about President Trump, you know, I've been with the league for a long time. I ran NBA Entertainment years ago. He did an I Love Kids game spot with us. He was a fixture at NBA at Madison Square Garden. You guys remember, well, all of you, when you played here, not Draymond, but back in the old days, he had courtside seats. He was here all the time. He was at drafts, so he's a genuine Knicks fan. And so yes, there's some inconvenience to the fans here, but one looking around this arena, it's packed. So people listen, they came early, they got through whatever extra security, which is necessary. So as I said, I think we should be using sports to create more of a sense of community with people, not less.
That was one hell of a way for him to tap dance around that and just not acknowledge the elephant in the room. The Knicks fans overall waited over 50 years for this. Outside of their arena, whether they play there or not, has been turned up every single night. And for Trump to come through in their very first finals game in well over 20 plus years, it was inconvenient. But again, in that very same night, Adam Silver had to have his best pitch with Donald Trump, because what we all didn't know was they were waiting on the outcome of that Karr versus Sanberg case that would expose their wealthiest owner, Steve Ballmer, to possibly get subpoenaed by the feds. Now all the emails of the Clippers are exposed, the transactions that they make, some of the paper trails of Ballmer's outside entities, which Adam Silver doesn't even have the reach to kind of investigate. Those things will be exposed because they're looking for any communication he had with Sanberg. But listen to President Trump, because you already know, he knows what it is. This is a transaction for him. It's almost like Adam Silver has approached him like he's a genie trying to make a wish. But just listen to Trump as he kind of alludes to Silver's bending at the knee. And we know Trump does not forget his enemies. Everyone knows how the NBA had a different energy towards him back in 2016.
Commissioner Silver,
he came over to pay his respects. You know, as president, he came over. We talked a little bit about the NBA and about the game, and the game's changed. I said it's gotten rougher, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. It's gotten rougher. When you look at the way they guard people now, I don't remember them doing that 10 years ago. And he knows a lot about basketball, but it's good. It's good for the game.
Do you think the NBA has
it's a
turned
tougher
away
game
from the left-wing stuff that they were getting criticized for?
Well, it's a little left wing. Yeah, I think so. It tends to be a little bit left wing, but it's great entertainment. Great.
Hey, right there, even the reporter acknowledges the NBA was very left wing, especially towards you back in 2016. Once again, Trump does not forget his enemies. But now a lot of them, including Disney, Apple, have all bent the knee. Even ESPN, when they tried to do that deal with the NFL, these entities were very nervous about just possibly being viewed as mini monopolies. So being buddy-buddy with Trump has been very beneficial for the very same companies that try to take a stand and brand themselves a certain way to get certain favoring with audiences. And I'm always saying throughout this show, in the business world, there's no such thing as woke. They play both sides. Whoever's the winner in politics and has the power is who they're gonna side with. But going back to that case that's up Steve Ballmer's ass, he's trying to get it thrown out. It didn't work. You snitched on your boy Joe Sanberg. He not only cooperated with the feds as well as the NBA, but he still got 14 years in jail. And for a billionaire like Ballmer, who said, oh, I got conned, it's very hard for the viewing audience to sympathize for a billionaire, for the most part, who has always had his way. This whole cap circumvention in a way kind of shows us how these tech oligarchs operate behind the scenes in order to get things going in their business's favor. Ballmer has gone through unprecedented amounts of money just to get an NBA superstar in a sport that's really a team concept in order to win. So just imagine what he's doing for Microsoft behind the scenes. But again, going back to his relationship with Joe Sanberg, a man who's in his 50s, now is about to do a 14-year bid. Ballmer has given statements in court going against him, saying that he's been conned. But Pablo Torre dug into the archives and found another nonprofit that Ballmer had funded, headed by Joe Sanberg, after Aspiration had completely fell apart. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
And so, what I went to go do was learn more about the Golden State Opportunity Foundation. But when I went to the Where We Started section of the Golden State Opportunity Foundation's website, this is what I saw.
Not found. Sorry, that page was not found.
Which was weird. It's weird, right? And so what I did was I went to the trusty old Internet Archive, a journalist's best friend.
Wayback Machine.
The Wayback Machine. And this, Amin, is what a cached version of the page used to read as recently as November 2024.
Golden State Opportunity founder Joseph Sanberg grew up in circumstances familiar to many Californians. Raised by a single mom who struggled to make ends meet on her public school teacher salary, Joe's family lost their home to foreclosure after falling deeply into debt.
And it goes on. And it is a tremendous story.
In case anyone was wondering, maybe it's another Joseph Sanberg.
That's the picture on the page that was erased.
Folks, I had a whole thing. I was going to do a Southern lawyer accent.
I
was going to push back.
Now you've just
You're
dropped.
broken.
We're just talking in our actual voices now.
Completely broken character.
None other than disgraced Aspiration co-founder Joe Sanberg is in fact the founder of the Golden State Opportunity Foundation. This is his charity. It's his baby. And it's a fact that is verified, by the way, by the organization's Form 990 IRS filings, which also list him as the longtime board chair. You can find references to Joe Sanberg's role in this organization all over his Wikipedia page, easily Googleable articles, interviews about his ambitions in democratic politics. And so the relevant question, I suppose, would be this. When did the Ballmer Group decide to give yet another seven-figure infusion of cash to an entity founded by Joe Sanberg? Is that the Ballmer Group announced this grant as part of a larger roundup of grants in December of 2024.
Once again, for those of you watching the visual version, I'll put a timeline of all the fuckery the Aspiration has been going through ever since 2022, including the fact that the Clippers, by the time it was a 23-24 season, terminated their deal with Aspiration. January 18, 2024, Bloomberg had did a probe under Aspiration. And then by the time it was July 18th, 2024, Bloomberg already called them frauds. So for it to be December of 2024, yet another nonprofit headed by Joe Sanberg and Steve Ballmer continues to give money to him, we all know that's his boy.
December 24 was a month after the last recorded mention of Joe Sanberg on the charity's website, which we showed you. It was a couple of months after the arrest of Joe Sanberg's co-conspirator, Ibrahim al-Husseini, by the FBI. It was almost a year after Bloomberg publicly broke the story of the government's investigation into Aspiration. It was more than a year after the Clippers claimed to end their partnership with Aspiration, and dozens of Aspiration employees had been interviewed by the federal government. In other words, well beyond the point when Steve Ballmer would have learned that he was humiliated and defrauded and victimized by Joe Sanberg, as he keeps on saying, Steve Ballmer's charity, the Ballmer Group, appears to have donated around December 2024, according to the public records of his own internal database, $1.875 million to that same fraudster for the first time.
Now remember, Steve Ballmer keeps saying, I got conned. It's almost in the same vein as when he first came into the NBA and he was like, Larry O.B. Both of those things is part of the same bullshit. He never gave a fuck about no Larry O.B. The truth is the Clippers actually allowed Ballmer to almost purchase half of downtown LA by USC. Not only he owns that arena that got built, he also was able to purchase the land directly from the state. So whether he's part of the NBA or not, he's going to be getting paid with that prime real estate.
Golden State Opportunity, what is it? 10th anniversary. There it is. 10th anniversary. They've been around for a long time, Pablo. A long time. They've been doing good work, right?
That's right.
And also the Ballmer Group, you said they've given out $400 million He doesn't know. It's like loose change in his couch cushions. Then they just we give it something called the Golden State Foundation. Golden State Opportunity. Sounds great.
It's true. It's true that $1.875 million was approximately, doing the math here, worth 0.0014% of Steve Ballmer's estimated net worth at the time. And so, in fairness, we put this in front of the Clippers and the Ballmer Group and the Golden State Opportunity Foundation. I wanted to know what this $1.875 million was used for and why it was $1.875 million. Maybe, this foundation has done and continues to do good work. But the timing of this donation is something that, just to me, would defy, what's that phrase again about explanation?
Cannot rationally be explained.
That's right. As source number 1 from the finance department at Aspiration also points out.
Am I taking crazy pills? It's just inconceivable to me to be both hoodwinked and bamboozled, but yet continuously giving money to Joe Sanberg. I don't know how to make that make sense in my mind.
Well, I want to anticipate the possibility that Steve Ballmer really believed in the mission of the Golden State Opportunity Foundation, Joe Sanberg's baby, the thing that he was the head of. And so maybe there is an art versus the artist sort of distinction he's drawing.
No, it does not make any iota of sense to invest in 2021, contribute nearly $100 million in carbon offset pre-purchases, reinvest in 2022 or 2023 round, claim all of that to be lost in 2023, and then come back for more in 2024.
So right there, you're hearing from a source that used to work for Aspiration. Everything they just stated right there is exactly what could get exposed if the feds subpoena Steve Ballmer. The Karr versus Sanberg case is very important because it does open up that line that never existed before. These are boundaries that the NBA cannot even reach towards, even with that famous law firm that they're using. Again, Pablo Torre has put on a master class into dog walking Adam Silver and Steve Ballmer into a corner that they cannot fucking get out of. If the NBA comes down with a judgment a little bit too fast, their reputation could be stained forever.
And then come back for more in 2024 via charitable donation. Maybe Steve Ballmer's a secret masochist.
That is honestly one of the most persuasive theories that anyone has offered at this point in the reporting. Yeah, Steve Ballmer's kink is being robbed.
Yeah. Rob me blind, daddy.
Hey, if Steve Ballmer continues fucking around, he gonna be saying that exact line in jail. Yo, next to his boy, Mr. Joe Sanberg. And again, we tied multiple layers to this whole fiasco. We're sort of getting an idea of how much an NBA star is truly worth to his franchise, especially in a league today where stars are taking pay cuts just to compete for a championship. Look at Wemby, Jalen Brunson. The list is going to keep on growing. At the same time, the league and the type of owners that are coming in, the money is growing for them. Also on the media side, why is there such light coverage with this whole situation? Pablo Torre is only a one-man show and he's digging deep into the crates. So fans are seeing for the first time, the coverage around the league is very compromised. Also, we're seeing why Adam Silver had a change of tone with Donald Trump, as he is the only person that can stop the feds from going through Steve Ballmer's personal emails, lines of communication with Joe Sanberg. And with that ruling that came down on June 30th, Ballmer is now exposed to this situation. So there's a lot of different things here at play.